Other interesting political news, you have Christie on the U.S. giving Iran $6 billion and de facto arming Hamas. Now, this is a recent tweet from Christie, and for him, I would say he went moderately viral. Most of his tweets, I would say, past couple months, with the exception of 2 Trump tweets that got 400,000 and about 1 million views. I would say most of his tweets get between 20 and 60,000, and this did a little bit better than usual, getting 72.7 thousand views. And he did have a little clip of himself, but before the clip starts, he says, quote, "Money is fungible," at Joe Biden and the White House denying that the $6 billion they gave to Iran went to helping terrorism is just them trying to cover their rear ends, unquote. And as I continue to evaluate new softwares, I do appreciate your input. I'm trying to get to the point where you have in production picture-in-picture, something that's very simple to use. Right now, I'm currently using OBS open source software for to record the actual production, and I have a USB 4K camera and a little USB microphone that I use. And I appreciate suggestions to try to make the show better. I tried XSplit, but kept having issues. I don't know if they need new drivers for the camera, but the camera would not work, and I tried 2 cameras actually. And then I tried another one, and again, it was one of those deltas where only one of them would work. So if you have suggestions, I greatly appreciate the feedback, because I do want to make the show better and better for everyone. And I am trying to work on my stuttering and my speaking too fast. And although it's not tested by the Mayo Clinic or any fancy doctors, if you click the subscribe button, it may help my stuttering. It may very well decrease the rate at which I stutter. Again, this has never been tested, but perhaps we can test that together today. So if you can, please click that button. And without further ado, I will, and again, perhaps this is a good example of we don't really want the picture-in-picture, because Christie is not the best at being photogenic. However, here's the clip of him on the Fox News, which I'd say C- for marketing. Why they don't use more of a Fox mascot is beyond me. But again, we know when it comes to marketing and business brilliance, Fox News, or Fox in general, not so great.
Let's not forget, the Iranians clearly here were supplying both hardware and strategy. And I think the Biden White House's denial of that is just them trying to cover their rear ends because they gave $6 billion over to the Iranians just a few weeks ago. And this excuse from the administration that money is only supposed to go for humanitarian aid, let me deal with that directly. Money is fungible. So they say there's only going to be on food. Well, any money that the Iranians were going to spend on food, they now have a fund for that. They can use that money to support terrorism. This idea that somehow the money hasn't left the account and all these other excuses. They gave comfort to terrorists and they gave financing to terrorists. Money is fungible, and there's no question that money that they didn't have access to before helped in this attack. Let's not...
And I don't know why. Perhaps Elon will say this is a feature, not a bug, but the videos keep replaying as soon as you're done with them. And they still don't have a playlist. So many things left to be wanted in terms of improving Twitter, also known as X. Now, I would say Christie, his social media responses are usually, they're usually abysmal in terms of the ratio. There's usually 60% against him, maybe 24 for him. Then you have 20% just people who love Trump and want to specifically just talk about how Trump is better than him. So, vitriolic to say the least. Now, with this statement, and again, I think it'll increase. I think perhaps you'll get 60% favorability. Perhaps. Let's dive on in. Now I'll go to the first post, or first response, which is very popular. This person is by the name of No Lie with Brian Tyler Cohen. And he says, quote, "The money doesn't go to the Iranian government. It goes to vetted nonprofits for humanitarian assistance like food and medicine. Iran wasn't going to spend that money for humanitarian purposes in the first place if they weren't forced to. You're lying and you know it." Now he got 1,653 likes out of 34,000 views. So quite a good ratio right there. Now someone did respond to him saying, by the name of Dave Smith, saying, quote, "I suppose it's impossible for the recipients of that money for humanitarian purposes to launder it for Iran and net a nice profit in the process," unquote. Which is a good point, although he only got 3 likes. Not to brag, but when I'm on Twitter, I usually get 2 to 3 likes, sometimes. At NICTOPBING. Let's see, what other positive responses? And then, of course, let's see. Someone by the name of Trump's Fever Dream, which they do get an A+ for marketing because you know exactly who they're voting for. And the picture is a angry Trump. So, presumably you know pretty much, their political affiliation. Now, this person says, quote, yet another reason your feeble candidacy is doomed, unquote. Person got 31 likes. Let's see here. I was going to say, usually it only takes one or two comments to get to one that's about his weight. Some calling it a big issue. Metaphor notwithstanding. Now, this person says, quote, or this person is by the name of C.P. Smith, says, quote, are you saying you ate all the money? Hefty rearing, unquote. Person got 7 likes. Someone by the name of Catherine, Someone by the name of Bronson saying, quote, sounds like a normal restaurant bill for your diner, unquote. Person got 2 likes. Someone by the name of DJ Smith 56 said, quote, the Republican Party is fungible. You can interchange one Republican for another, and yet you get the same thing, unquote. And they did use a upside down smiley face, interestingly enough. Now, this person got 88 likes, which I can't help but notice. A lot of Republicans, well, I would say it's a lot of Democrats as well. A lot of them are simply a copy paste of each other. If you were to actually just look at their policies, you probably couldn't help but think. Many could not guess who actually they were voting for if you only had policies listed on a ballot, which I actually wish we kind of would get rid of the R's and the D's next to people's names on the ballot so people actually knew who they were voting for, not just what party they claimed to be with. Another topic for another time perhaps, but it is an interesting point where they're saying, yeah, you just swap one Republican in for another. Because many of them they're pretty much the same. Although I'd also argue, you could also argue, politically speaking, parties do have certain things that they all agree on. But still, I was going to say, interesting point. Let's see here. Someone actually clarifies this, so I appreciate that. Now, this person, his name is Cecil Copeland. They actually texted a meme. Well, I don't know if it's really a meme. It's just it's a picture with a lot of text. So, this is his text says, quote, Media Sync Network Instant Fact Check. Lie, the U.S. government gave $6 billion in taxpayer money to Iran, which was given to Hamas to attack Israel. The facts, the U.S. did not give a cent to Iran. The U.S. unfroze $6 billion in Iranian money during a prisoner swap. Not a single penny has been spent. The money is in a bank account in Qatar, monitoring by the U.S. Treasury, and can only be spent on humanitarian aid. All purchases must be verified by the U.S. Treasury Department, unquote. That person got 12 likes, which I was going to say, I'm sure it is a negotiation, and a lot of people will reference the book, The Art of the Deal by Trump. This perhaps would be a good example of the opposite of the art of the deal, the art of losing. You gave him $6 billion for prisoner swap? It's almost as bad as a trade for Brittany Griner, which, to her credit, is the only WNBA player ever to be known by name, which gives a certain sense of fame in and of itself. We actually traded The Lord of War. If you ever saw the film, it's a brilliant film with Nicolas Cage. They've traded Victor Bout for her and left a United States Marine in Russia, which shows the United States priorities. A basketball player, well, a rudimentary basketball player who does copious amounts of drugs, hates the United States, and doesn't even stand for the anthem. That's who he chose to swap for. Interestingly enough, that book is also brilliant. It is Victor Bout's book. What is it? It's going to drive me crazy. I have it on the shelf right here. I read it this year. I want to say, where did it go? It's going to drive me crazy. I know the book. Was the book, where did I put it? It eludes me at the moment. No? Now I have to know. Now I have to remember the book's name. It's a challenge. Merchant of Death, I believe, is one of the books. But it talks about how the movie The Lord of War is based off this man. We gave him up for a rudimentary basketball player. It's a really good book. It's very complex in terms of all the holding companies he set up and all the logistics. It is a very fascinating read, though, if you're kind of a business nerd, especially. I found it very, very, very fascinating. Although, it would probably be more prudent if you actually had a Amazon URL created for this podcast, and I can actually recommend the book and put it in the body of the description. Perhaps I'll do that shortly in the future. Now, let's look at the other responses. And a lot of these are just vitriolic against Chris Christie. You have John Robb saying, quote, well, Fatso, we knew it was way too good to be last. You were 3% in the polls last week, and now you're back down to 2% again. I guess the good times could not keep rolling with you. Person got 2 likes. Let's see here. Somebody named Beth82, and she says, quote, well, nice of you to ride on Cheney's coattails. There's a little nagging fact that, wait a sec, what was it now? None of that money has been touched, unquote. Getting 11 likes. Laura Reisner says, quote, well, there goes my last hope that you might be reasonable and a responsible actor in the GOP mess. No more. 71 likes from her. Somebody named as Math is Life, although pathetically enough, the emoji he chose for his profile picture is a peace sign. Which, again, if your name is Math in Life, how you could not have an emoji of a calculator is beyond me. F- for marketing, Mr. Math for Life. Nevertheless, Mr. Math for Life, profile picture isn't even of a calculator, it's of a guy. But nevertheless, Mr. F marketing, he says, quote, I thought you were better than this. Republicans learned a fancy word, fungible, and now think they are international accountants. This is a lie. Not a single penny of that money went to Hamas. True leaders do not have to lie to curry favor against their opponents. Sad. Unquote. Person did get 23 likes, though, so a lot of people resonated with that message. Let's see here. Yeah. Somebody named David Wells said, quote, you just lost my vote, unquote. And he got 16 likes. Yeah, interestingly enough, let's just say the support for Christie. The support for Christie is hard to find, to say the least, on social media. Trying to see maybe one more interesting one. Yeah. A lot of the comments are also just roasting Republicans as well, not specifically Chris Christie. So I guess perhaps a silver lining for him, maybe. A lot of people saying money is still in the account, stop the lies. So, yeah, let me know. Has this increased or decreased your perception of Chris Christie? Do you think this is going to help him in the polls, or perhaps he'll just continue the trend of kind of just hanging in there as he gathers the Never Trumper voters? Although DeSantis is ramping up that campaign, so I think DeSantis is going to get those voters from Chris Christie in terms of voters, or I was going to say, saw for the Republican nominee at the moment, but in these polls, I think some of the polls and the people reporting them, they might shift perhaps from Chris Christie. So you may try to find a new shtick or a new campaigning methodology or philosophy. It'll be interesting to see. Do you think he can turn around his campaign? It may take a little time because, turn around quite a feat in and of itself. But as I always say, time shall tell. Thank you everyone again for taking the time to tune in today. Again, we're trying to get to 4,000 subscribers by the end of October, so if you can click that button, I would greatly appreciate it. Again, I'm not a doctor, but it may help with the stuttering that I have. If you click that button, it might be the cure. We don't know, but together we could find out. Also, I greatly appreciate your feedback, especially if it's critical, because that's how you grow the most. So if you leave a comment, I greatly appreciate it. Also, liking the channel may or may not help. I have no idea how the algorithm works. It seems to change like the weather, but liking the videos is a good indicator that I'm doing a good job, or downvoting if I need to change some of the things accordingly. Also, lastly, don't forget to take the time to tell your family, tell your friends, tell your coworkers, heck, tell your enemies, tell anyone and everyone. Just stay safe, fight the good fight.